Why do I think me taking photos makes the world a better place? Or why do I think it makes me a better version of myself? Because I think ultimately most things you do come down to one of those two things. And I think what it does is it trains you to see the world in a certain way. When you're taking photographs, you're trying to capture something, right? Sometimes you're trying to capture something that looks beautiful. That's kind of the base, easiest attempt you can do, is to film something that's beautiful, to capture something that looks aesthetically beautiful. And there's more complexity to it than that, but I'll start even just with this, with capturing photos that are beautiful. It is not as easy as it sounds. One, because it's not easy to do that, but two, it forces you to confront what beauty is. And it's not really something that you can define or articulate or put into words. You can say that this photo is nice because there's depth and contrast and nice symmetry and smooth organic shapes. There's a lot of ways that you can describe beauty, but those don't explain exactly what it is. And I think photography, or really any creative act, it forces you to understand what beauty is at a very fundamental level. You understand it not in the lens of this is beautiful because the photo has XYZ, but you understand it in the sense of this is beautiful because it makes me feel this. This is beautiful because it just is, right? It's more of an act of recognition, in my opinion, than it is an act of anything else. You recognize beauty and then you capture it. And sometimes you capture something that you don't think is beautiful. You kind of accidentally strike magic, and afterwards you're able to recognize it or tweak it to a point where you can value it. So yeah, it forces you to frame beauty. It forces you to look at the world in a certain way and examine everything around you to enlighten yourself on your own perspective. You get to look at a door handle and ask yourself, what is it that makes this door handle beautiful? What is it? How can I frame this in a certain way with certain lighting, settings, angle, foreground, background, so that this is beautiful? Or so that this scene, this portrait of a person, what is it about this person that's beautiful, and how do I capture that in a single frame? And I think there's an important bit of photography where I think photography is more difficult than videography, because with video, what you're able to capture that you can't on photo is you can capture motion more easily. You can capture motion in time and like motion of objects. And so you don't really need to precisely time anything, right? Because you have time built into the medium itself, you don't have to worry about it as much. It's a lot more forgiving. At least like you kind of have to worry about it, but if you capture a 20-second clip, you can use 10 of it in the final edit. And so it's much more forgiving on the time plane. But when you're photographing, you can hold down and spray, and that's kind of what I do, but timing is way more important because you only have that one moment. You're capturing a fraction of a moment. And yeah, especially if you're shooting candids of two people talking, for example, there's something beautiful in that interaction. And photography forces you to try and capture it and distill it into one exact still moment. And there's an incredible nuance to it where if you have a really fast shutter speed and you just hold down and capture like 100 shots within 3 seconds, you might look and maybe only 5 of those only actually capture the feeling of joy that you see in front of you. And it's kind of crazy to think about. Like, you don't really think about time like that unless you're doing photography. You just see people laughing. You don't have to register. Like, it just automatically comes across. But when you capture it still by still, you notice that really, like in isolated moments, there's only parts of it that fully express that joy that are interspersed along time, and then you kind of stitch those together into this memory and into this emotion. So yeah, that's a very long-winded thought. But yeah, so beauty is one of the things that you can capture. I think that's probably the default, but there's really any emotion, not even emotion, any adjective, uh, any feeling is something that you can try and capture. And I think people talk about trying to tell a story within a single frame. I think that makes sense, but it's not, it's a very visceral story. I didn't really get what that meant for a long time because, you don't really have, in my opinion, a story is a transformation at its essence. A story is someone or something starts at point A, they go to point B, and somewhere in between they change as a person. I think that's what makes a good story. And ideally, the viewer, the person consuming the story, also changes somewhere along that journey. Their perception changes, their feeling changes. And with photography, you can't really capture time. So you can't really capture a transformation as well as you can in video or music or some of these more drawn out mediums. But what you can do is capture an emotion. I think that's much more authentic, in my opinion, to what photography is than just telling a story. I think it's more capturing an emotion or a feeling. And so there's a lot of ways that can manifest. It can be trying to capture beauty, sadness, joy, anger, frustration, laughter. There's all these things that you can, freedom, a feeling of expansive liberty. These are all things to capture, and they're all very difficult in their own right to condense down into this one minute moment in this one frame. But I think photography forces you to confront all of those things that you're trying to capture at a very raw, fundamental level. And I think this is the same for any art form. I think it's the same for painting, for music. This is just one medium to do it. But if you're trying to take a photo and capture a sense of sadness, you need to be very present in the moment. It's very much an act of meditation to sit there and ask yourself, okay, I have this shot. Does this here feel like this, what I'm looking at here? No. Okay, what if I change the lighting here? Not quite. Okay, what if I move in? Okay, that's better. Okay, what if I tilt like this? It's very much an act of meditation and presence. You need to be incredibly in tune with, not to sound woo-woo, but the energy flowing through you, your emotions, your feelings, your thoughts. You have to be incredibly present and focused at what's in front of you. And I think that's why photography to me is a beautiful medium and why I enjoy to do it. And think that it's a craft worth cultivating. So there you go. There you go. Cool.